Hello everyone, and welcome to Magic Kingdom Keeper. Today is the first animal chat episode, and these will be a continuous thing. I will have footage of animals and then talk about these animals and hopefully help you all appreciate and learn some new facts about the animals. So today, as you probably could tell from the name of this video, we are going to talk about naked mole rats. And I'm going to tell you first off that mole rats are neither moles nor rats, and naked mole rats are not naked, which I will definitely talk about. But these animals are still rodents, and they are related more closely to chinchillas, guinea pigs, and porcupines. So there is something for you if you thought that these were rats or moles. You would have been misinformed, and now hopefully you know that they're not. So, naked mole rats come from the eastern horn of Africa, and they come from Somalia, Kenya, and Ethiopia. In these countries, they live underground. Most naked mole rats are never above ground, actually. So they live underground in these tunnel systems, and in these tunnel systems they have these rooms called chambers, and these chambers are for all of the different things they need to do with their life. So there is a bedding chamber, there is a nesting chamber, which is the same as a bedding chamber. So there is a bedding or nesting chamber, rearing chamber, food chamber, and their waste chamber, which is also called a toilet chamber. I'm sure you can guess what they do there. They don't just go to the bathroom there, though. They do also put items that they don't care about, and this could include old food, dead naked mole rats, so it's not just for a toilet, but they also do something else there that we will talk about in a little bit. So I was talking about how these guys live underground. They can live in systems that are as big as 6 football fields. So I just want you to think about that. That's pretty crazy. In these tunnel systems, they live in colonies of 20 to 300 individuals, and they live in a system that is called a eusocial system, and this system is really special, especially for mammals, because there are only 2 mammals that live by this system. It is usually for insects like ants as well as wasps. So this system is where they have this advanced organization where they have a main female or a caste system, and so the female is reproductive and that's her job. She makes the babies, and then the other individuals help protect and help raise the young, and some of them are not reproductive, so they can't have babies, and their whole job is to help the queen have babies and help those pups is what they're called, help those pups be reared and healthy. So that is their job. They get food and they help rear the pups, which is a really interesting system. The only other mammal that has this is a different kind of naked mole rat. So they are very special, which I'll be saying that a lot. Naked mole rats have a lot of really cool things about them. I'm hoping by the end of this video, you all will have a really good appreciation for naked mole rats and maybe even like them. I know, they're not very cute for most people. They're have those beady little eyes and they look naked. They don't have all of those characteristics that people look for when they go to the zoo and they want to see the super cute, what we call megafauna, those really big animals like gorillas and giraffes. So I try to help people love the small animals. So they live in these eusocial systems that have a queen, soldiers, and workers. And the queen, as I talked about earlier, she is the one that has the pups, and she has to actually fight to be the queen. Queens are not born in a naked mole rat society. The queen has to fight and then continue to fight to continue to be the queen. So if the queen is killed, a new queen will rise up and then have to protect that colony. So pretty brutal, but something that is super fascinating about the queen, which I did not know before, is when a naked mole rat becomes a queen, they actually create space between their vertebrae, and that helps them carry more young. And so they can carry between, well, I guess on average 11 pups, but they can have over 20. And pups weigh the size of about a penny, which is small, but naked mole rats aren't very big either. So you can imagine that is a lot to carry. So then next in this caste system, we have the soldiers, and just like their name entails, they do protect the colony. So snakes are their main predators, but also other naked mole rats can try to come in and fight. So they do have to protect against both of those things. And what they do, and this is the coolest thing ever, is the soldiers pile on top of each other when there's a predator, and they open their mouths, so they are essentially just a wall of huge teeth, and that is meant to try to scare away that predator. And I just have a lot of fun imagining it. I tried to look up a picture online, and these guys live underground, so the pictures are not super readily available, but it is a super cute visual. Not cute, a super cool visual. And so that's what the soldiers do. So they protect, and then the workers are the non-reproductive ones, and they, non-reproductive meaning that they don't help create the babies. And so these workers are there to rear the pups, also find food, help dig the tunnels. They, I think, get the short end of the stick, although I feel like the queen does as well, because all she does is carry a massive amount of young. So these workers, they find food and bring it to the the food chamber, and as I said, they help rear the young. So that is their job in this eusocial system. So I just mentioned food, and you might be thinking, hey Michelle, what do they eat? So these animals eat roots and tubers, of course, because those can grow underground. So those workers will go find a root or tuber, they will bring a piece back, they'll gnaw it off with their teeth, which I'll talk more about their teeth a little bit later, and then they'll bring that piece back and they'll vocalize and they'll say, look at me, I found food, so that the other workers can go grab the food, bring it to the food chamber, and also bring it to the queen, of course, because she needs a lot of energy to make all of those pups. So they get their sustenance from those roots and tubers. They also get their water from that, because they do not drink water. They have to get all of their water from their food. You can imagine underground, you would not want water because it would fill up the tunnels. So they get that from the roots and tubers, and that is how they stay alive, continue to create babies, and fight off animals with those crazy teeth walls. So we've talked about where they come from, what their system looks like, and also what they eat. We're gonna now talk about different ways they communicate. So I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but since they're in dark tunnels, as I said, these animals are not naked. They have actually 100 hairs on their bodies, which kind of act as whiskers, which help them sense around. And the workers also have hairs in between their toes to help sweep stuff back, like the brooms on their feet to sweep the dirt back while they're making the tunnels. So I guess I'm not just talking about communication, I'm talking about senses in general. But naked mole rats do have very small eyes, which they can use for vision, but for the most part, they don't. They're not very good eyes. They do live underground in the dark, and they also have these whiskers to help them figure out where they are. So a lot of times they close their eyes when they are tunneling around because there's dirt everywhere. And I talked about their vocalizations a little bit, how a worker will vocalize when they find food. They have 17 known vocalizations, which makes sense. They're not going to communicate with visual cues, so they do have to have other cues. And they also communicate with smell. So I said we were coming back to the toilet chamber, and here we are. Naked mole rats roll around, dig around, rub themselves in the poop so that they smell like the colony. And this is how those soldier naked mole rats know when there is a foreign naked mole rat. They're like, you don't roll around in our poop chamber, you don't smell like us, go away, or we will show you our teeth wall. So they roll around in that, and that is a very important part of their senses. So if you keep naked mole rats separated for too long and they don't smell like each other, they will try to kill each other. So it's very important for them to have this smell. So another way that these animals communicate is by pushing and biting at each other. So I talked about how the queen has to keep her dominance. So she goes around when she's not birthing pups at that exact time, and she pushes around the other naked mole rats, she bites at them, and she lets them know, hey, I'm queen, don't mess with me. And so this sounds probably to you all very uncomfortable, but naked mole rats actually have, when they're fully grown, have 2/3 of their pain receptors gone. So they don't feel very much pain. They still do feel pain, just like for most other animals. You want to be able to feel pain if it's really serious, because you need to know that it is serious. And so they still can feel pain, but when they're biting at each other, they don't really feel that very much, and they're totally fine. I mean, they are gonna say, ooh, hey, look at you, you're super dominant, you're biting at me, but they're not going to have super painful moments for the most part with that kind of communication. So another thing about these guys, I talked about how they bite at each other. They have 1/4 of all of the muscle in their whole body is in their jaw, which is really cool. And their teeth, so they have incisors on the top and bottom, and they move independently of each other. So they are essentially built-in chopsticks for these mole rats. And as you know, a lot of rodents have really strong bite forces and really gnarly teeth. These guys are no exception, and their teeth are outside of their mouth. It's a really interesting thing when I have to medicate naked mole rats, and I'm using a syringe, I have to go behind the teeth into their mouth because their teeth are on the outside. So it is very interesting. As you can tell, this helps them with finding food, and their incisors do continuously grow, so they do have to gnaw on things so that they can keep those down. But I will have some footage in here, so you guys may have already seen it, but their teeth are pretty cool. So I've said cool, neat, fascinating, I'm sure, a million times in this, and I hope you are starting to agree. Some things that didn't fit in the rest of the topics that I talked about are that naked mole rats live up to 30 years, which is absolutely insane. Because if we're thinking about rodents, you know, rats maybe live like 2 to 4 years, guinea pigs 5 to 8 years. We are talking about a small rodent living 30 years. And I mean, just imagine, so, you know, a lot of animals, like let's say our dogs and cats, are not going to live till 30. The only animals that you're probably going to have as a pet that live that long would be turtles and tortoises, and maybe some fish, and of course a lot of birds, because birds are very long-lived. But we're talking about a rodent, so super cool. They also do not get cancer. I'm sure you just said, wow, very loudly. I hope people heard you so they come over and watch this video. So they don't get cancer. They are used for cancer research to try to figure out why they don't get cancer. It's something that is super fascinating and really cool. One of the reasons that they might not get some of the same diseases or ailments that other mammals get is because they are super inbred. And I'm sure you're here saying, inbreeding's bad, okay? And it is for most things, but if you are an animal that inbreeds a lot, so of course, since they only have one queen, the queen has babies, the babies grow up, there's a lot of inbreeding. And if you only have a small amount of genetics going into your population, you need to weed out all of those bad genes, those ailments that you might get, and because otherwise these animals would just keep dying. So this system is so inbred that they became healthy again. So that is really cool, and that might be a reason that they don't get cancer and they don't get some of the other things that other mammals get. So that is super neat. Another fact that's probably a little less gross to most people is that naked mole rats can run as fast forward as backwards as they can backwards, which is really cool. So that's something that if you ever watch naked mole rats, you will see them running backwards very quickly a lot of times, especially when they confront one another. So you can imagine in the tunnels, they also walk over each other. They're just not very nice to each other for the most part. They also, hi Sigrid, they also do have to keep temperature in their chambers of about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. They do not have hair, except for those 100 hairs, so they don't have very much hair. This is a Sigrid who obviously is super excited to be held, so I'm gonna put her down. When they're sleeping in their bedding chamber, they pile on top of each other to keep each other warm. So it might not look very comfortable. They also sleep on their backs a lot of times. People will come to me and say, that naked mole rat looks dead. And most of the time they're not. If they are dead, they will probably be in that toilet chamber. So it's a good way to tell if they're dead. That doesn't mean they're necessarily dead, but it's something to think about. Wow, that got dark really fast. Anyways, so I've talked about a lot of cool things about naked mole rats. Something that is good for their status right now is they are considered of least concern, so they are not vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered. That does not mean that they won't ever be vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered, but they do live underground, so things that affect animals on the surface might not necessarily affect naked mole rats. They still definitely can. Climate change can still affect them. It just takes a little bit longer to get to them. Huge climate events could still affect them. It just kind of depends. So they are doing okay. They are protected in the Kenya's forest system, that is their forestry system. They are protected, which is very, very nice, because we want to keep our animals of least concern to continue to be of least concern. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. So just because an animal's okay right now doesn't mean we don't need to care about them. And I'm really hoping that throughout this video, you have found reasons to care about the naked mole rats. Honestly, I probably didn't even talk about everything. I mean, I definitely didn't talk about everything about naked mole rats. I'm sure this video is only like 10 to 15 minutes, but there are more cool facts. You could do your research, you could tell your friend, you can send someone over to watch my video, and hopefully you look at naked mole rats with some more appreciation now. I'm very glad that you all joined me for my first animal chat. This will be a continuous series. I will have videos from around where I work, and I will tell you all about really cool facts about animals. And don't worry, sometimes the animals will be something like a gorilla or an elephant. But I do really, really like to talk about things that you might not have the right appreciation for. And hopefully you have it now. So thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful day.